Marcos had spent most of his life on the water. It was a legacy passed down from his father and grandfather, an intimate relationship with the ocean, equal parts love and fear. He knew the sea's rhythms and moods. The line between a fruitful journey and a disaster could be as thin as a fishing line. Yet tonight, something felt off. The water was too still, the wind too quiet, and the moon, hanging low and swollen, painted the sea in an eerie silver glow. Ivan sat at the stern of the Eclipse, untangling fishing nets. He had been Marcos's closest friend since childhood, a man who always found humor even in danger. But tonight, even Ivan's playful spirit seemed subdued. "You feel it too?" Marcos asked, lighting a cigarette and exhaling into the cool night air. Ivan gave a nervous shrug. "Yeah, like something's watching." He chuckled, but it lacked his usual confidence. "Probably just the moon playing tricks on us." They had ventured farther into deep waters than usual, lured by rumors of better fishing. But these waters came with stories, ones old fishermen shared only after too many drinks. Tales of cursed ships, strange creatures, and restless spirits. Ivan tried to focus on the nets, but even the familiar hiss of the rope unspooled ominous tonight. The net jerked suddenly. "Got something big," Ivan muttered, straining against the line. "Reef?" Marcos asked, but they both knew there were no reefs this far out. Together, they pulled the net from the depths. As it surfaced, they stopped cold. Entangled in the net was a figurehead, a carved wooden bust of a woman. Her features were grotesque, weathered by years beneath the sea. Her expression was a blend of anguish and cruel amusement, as though she had seen endless suffering and delighted in it. Seaweed clung to her tangled hair, and barnacles covered her rotting face, but her hollow, carved eyes seemed to glimmer with life. Ivan shivered. That's not normal. Marcos could feel something ancient stirring beneath the wood, something that shouldn't have been disturbed. "We need to toss it back." Ivan hesitated. "Could be worth something?" "No," Marcos said firmly. "It doesn't belong here." They wrestled the figurehead free from the net and hurled it overboard. It hit the water with a heavy splash, sinking slowly into the dark depths. Its cold eyes locked on them until the sea swallowed it whole. For a moment, everything was quiet, but then the air thickened, and a dense fog rolled in, obscuring the moon. And from the mist came the sound of creaking wood, ancient, tired, and malevolent. The Lucero del Mar emerged from the fog, a ghost ship long thought lost. Its hull was blackened and splintered, its sails tattered, yet filled with an invisible wind. On its deck, bloated sailors shuffled, their faces twisted with rot, their eyes glowing faintly in the mist. At the prow stood a figure that matched the figurehead exactly, a half-decayed woman with a grin that twisted her jagged, waterlogged features. Ivan's voice was barely a whisper. "What the hell is that?" The ghostly crew began lowering a longboat into the water. They were coming for them. "Start the engine!" Marcos shouted, his voice breaking with panic. They scrambled to the stern, but the engine coughed and sputtered uselessly. No matter how many times Marcos yanked the cord, it refused to start. The longboat bumped against the side of the Eclipse, and the cursed sailors began climbing aboard, dragging themselves up with unnatural strength. Their bloated hands clutched rusted tools, harpoons, hooks, and knives. Ivan grabbed the flare gun and fired at the nearest sailor. The flare struck it square in the chest, igniting it in a burst of red light. The creature let out a guttural wail and crumpled to the deck, but another took its place almost instantly, dragging itself over the railing with glowing eyes fixed hungrily on them. "They keep coming!" Ivan yelled, swinging a crowbar desperately. Marcos stabbed at one of the sailors with a knife, but the creature merely grinned and pulled the blade from its chest like an annoyance. "There's too many!" Marcos shouted. "We can't fight them all!" Ivan looked at him with wild, desperate eyes. "What do we do?" Then a shimmering green light cut through the fog, freezing the cursed sailors in place. Marcos turned toward the bow, and his heart sank. The figurehead was back. It rested on the deck, its grin wider than before, its wooden eyes glinting with malicious joy. "The figurehead! It's the key," Marcos whispered. "We have to get rid of it, permanently." With a burst of adrenaline, they fought their way toward the bow. Ivan held off the advancing sailors, bloodied but determined, as Marcos hacked at the bolts holding the cursed figurehead in place. The final bolt snapped, and the figurehead tumbled free, rolling to a stop at the edge of the boat. Its grin seemed to mock them one last time. Marcos wrapped the figurehead in ropes and tied it to the heaviest tools they had. With a grunt, he heaved it overboard, shouting, "Don't come back!" The moment it hit the water, the Lucero del Mar groaned like a dying beast. The cursed sailors froze mid-step, their glowing eyes dimming as the ghost ship dissolved into mist, taking its twisted souls with it. Marcos and Ivan collapsed onto the deck, gasping for breath as the fog lifted and the sea returned to its calm, familiar rhythm. "It's over," Ivan whispered, voice hoarse with relief. But Marcos wasn't so sure. He stared at the spot where the figurehead had sunk, the water eerily still. Then the surface rippled. A pale hand broke through the water, dragging the figurehead back up from the depths. It emerged slowly, the woman's wooden face now fully intact, her grin impossibly wide, as if she had been waiting all along for this moment. Marcos scrambled to his feet, heart hammering in his chest. But it was too late. The figurehead floated upright on the water, glowing with an unholy light. And then, with a sickening creak, it began to rise, higher and higher, until the full length of a monstrous form emerged beneath it. A creature of rotting wood and seaweed, shaped like a twisted fusion of woman and ship, towered over the eclipse, its glowing eyes locking onto the two men with malicious glee. Ivan screamed, backing away toward the stern. "What the hell is that?" Marcus's mouth went dry. "It's not part of the ship." "It is the ship." The monstrous figurehead lunged toward the boat, the water churning violently as its massive form loomed over them. This time there would be no running. And as the creature descended, Marcos realized with cold certainty, some things from the depths were never meant to be cast away. The sea always takes what it's owed.